So the first one we're going to be working on and grinding down are some of these gnarly welds on this little practice piece I had. I got some really big fat ones. I was just playing around with my TIG welder I got and wanted to see what it can do. So I will be using a 36 grit first on top of that weld, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then I'll top it off with a 60 grit to show you what that looks like and why using different grits to take down a weld to a smooth surface is important. Then also I will be using one of Benchmark Abrasives aluminum cutting wheels to show you how that works. And then I will pull out a regular mild steel or stainless steel cutting wheel while using wax to show you if you're in a pinch and you don't have aluminum cutting wheels, how you can still use a regular cutting wheel to cut through this. Because again, when you start cutting through aluminum, this is pretty abrasive on the inside. This is a structural steel piece of aluminum as well. So get with you in just a second. So now you can see that was the 36 grit that I used on sanding that weld down. I took it down completely flush here and then left some of the weld right here just to kind of give you an idea. You can see how textured this aluminum is right now, which is fine, but it still did exactly what I wanted it to, very quickly and efficiently as well. So yeah, I'm very impressed with that. That's awesome. It was fast. It was easy. I didn't have to bear down to get it to cut. I just let the weight of the grinder do its own thing. So now we're going to take it up a notch and go up to the 60 grit. The second pass using the 60 grit. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but I can tell holding it, that is a massive difference. The 36 grit left a real grainy, just heavy grinding pattern, and I threw that 60 grit on there and it really smoothed it out. I still left part of this weld sticking out just so you all can kind of see the difference between where it was and where it's at now. So yeah, I'm very impressed with that actually. But that's why it's important making sure you're using your grits and your flap wheels in a proper process. This way you're going to save a ton of money when you purchase these products. You step it down and your wheels are going to last 3-4 times as long instead of just using one wheel to just sit there and grind and force it. These I did not have to force down at all. Again, I was just kind of barely putting any pressure and mainly the weight of the grinder on it. So that was impressive. I'm very impressed with that. Next, what I'm going to do is use the aluminum cutting wheel on this and see how well it does. I have not used the aluminum welding, my apologies, the aluminum cutting wheel from Benchmark Abrasives yet. So we're going to see how this works out together. So again, we got the aluminum cutting wheel on here. I'm going to cut straight through this piece, see how it works out. I have my handle on here. I have my guard as well. Taking these safety precautions very serious. I want to keep my fingers. But I am obviously not going to cut like this with the way the guard is. I'm just going to simply push the button here, turn that guard. That way I can go straight down and across with it. So let's test this out and see how it works. I'm going to turn the piece around here so I can get a better angle on what I'm cutting. Figure this out. There we go. Tighten this up a little bit. Now I obviously can't cut like this, so this is where I'm going to tilt this back just a little bit more, but just enough to where that grinding dust is going that way and not straight up at me. Okay, so just using the aluminum cutting wheel dry, it did okay. I'm actually surprised it did as good as it did, because usually I'm using wax on any aluminum I cut. I want to make sure I got that proper lubricant, pulling out any debris as I'm cutting. So, all in all, not bad. I mean, they could definitely be used without lubricant for sure. So what I'm going to do now, though, is go ahead and add some wax to the cutting wheel so that I can get a comparison from a dry cutting wheel to one with wax on it. So we'll go ahead and cut and see how that does. So now what I'm going to do is just take this wax here. I'm going to turn the grinder on, set it right down in the wax, get this wheel nice and lubricated, cut through this. The reason I'm doing this, I want to kind of get a comparison how the aluminum cutting wheel did without wax, and now I want to see how it is with wax. We should definitely see a difference in speed and consistency. So I'm going to go ahead and get going and see how this works out. You see I got the wax on here, still on the blade, so yeah, it's holding up pretty good there. And I'm going to go ahead and get another cut. So now you can see that these pieces, if you're looking at the cut, there's not much of a difference except for me not making a straight cut. They both look really consistent as far as the way the grains are going and how the texture is. But I did notice there was a definite difference in speed and how smooth that cutting wheel went in when I used some wax. So I can't say one was better than the other efficiently. I will say when adding the wax did add some more speed, but as far as the blade was concerned, it still held up very well for both of them, using an aluminum cutting wheel, which I've never used before, and that was pretty good. So next I'm going to be cutting through some 1-inch thick aluminum flat bar here. I am going to still use the aluminum cutting wheel without wax, and then I'm going to put wax on it. We're going to try to see a difference as far as the cutting speed goes with it when you use the two different, either dry or wet. That wax is helping pores from clogging up and also helping to reduce the heat, so that's why I like using it. So again, this is another Benchmark abrasive aluminum cutting wheel. I'm going to be using it dry, cutting through this 1-inch thick, seeing about how long it takes me to do, and then I'll do another one using the wax with the wheel to see how that turns out. So what I'm going to have to do is actually change out the wheel. It didn't cut deep enough for me to get through this 1-inch bar, so I'm going to take this, put a new one on there that's also completely dry, and finish cutting through it. And then we will use one with wax to see what kind of difference we have. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go ahead and add some wax. This is another fresh wheel for aluminum cutting. I want to see how far down I can get without even having to change wheels, or even if I do, and then I want to compare it to the size of these wheels and how much actually was used and burned away. So as you can see here, even though I used the wax, I was able to cut through that entire piece without changing the blade at all. So let's take this off and compare real quick. So here's where I had to go through two different blades to cut through that 1-inch thick material. And here's a blade. It's an aluminum cutting blade, or wheel, with wax on it. And it looks like, yeah, it's still bigger than the one I had to change out. So that did really good. Now I'm going to show you a big difference. Pan up here. Did you hit stop?
Oh, no.
So that did pretty good without any kind of wax on it. I mean, I had to take a second wheel to cut, but didn't take very long. But this, I'm still pretty impressed with it. So now I'm going to grab one to put on here and actually use some wax. Hit stop. Now I'm going to use a cutting wheel that is for stainless steel and metals. And what I'm going to do, actually, Benchmark Abrasives, they have this assortment kit. It's actually really nice. It's got, you know, your flap wheels, your grind wheels, and your cutting wheels in here. But what I'm going to use is a cutting wheel specifically for metal and stainless. It doesn't say it's for aluminum at all. I'm going to cut through here and see how far we get while it's dry. And then same thing, I'm going to use some wax to see how that reacts as well. Alright, so here we go with a metal and stainless steel cutting wheel. I want to see how it works with this aluminum and how fast we burn through this cutting wheel. If you can tell, I was struggling to get this thing to cut through that aluminum. It did not cut all the way through it. I wore that down a little smaller than what I thought it was going to actually. So that goes to show when you're using an aluminum cutting wheel, it's going to last much longer, even dry, than what your steel cutting wheel is on aluminum. Again, because you have a very abrasive metal right here going against abrasive material, and it's just kind of sanding against each other. So what I'm going to do is put another steel cutting wheel on here, use some wax, and finish this cut off. And again, I don't know if you noticed on the table, it was having a lot of trouble cutting. It was trying to jerk around where it was really grabbing a hold. And you can actually start smelling the burn come off this wheel while it was cutting. And yeah, my table, it's a little small. Don't worry, I'm in the process of getting another actual fixture table. I had a big fab table in here originally, but it took up so much room, I had to get rid of it. I wasn't able to move around properly. So this my little table I got here. It's my little portable welding table. I've had it for a while. I think it's great, but I'll work on getting a portable fixture table here soon. All right, so now what I'm going to do is just add some wax. This is a new metal cutting wheel, and finish this cut off. All right, so the results here with these cutting wheels, with the aluminum cutting wheels, the way it worked out, I used this much of a cutting wheel to cut through that 1 inch, which there's still a lot of wheel there, don't get me wrong. It's just that it was 1 inch thick and the grinder wouldn't let me continue to go all the way down. Then I just had to top it off with a fresh wheel, didn't take long at all. So using these were great. And then I used the one with wax. Turned out even better. I only had to use one wheel on this one, so I'm highly impressed with the way these things are working out. So yeah, I'm impressed. This is some good stuff. The one thing I would like to point out, I should have mentioned earlier when I was talking about the safety stuff, is your grinder. So each wheel is going to have on here what the rotations per minute is, or your RPM. Like this flap wheel, for instance, is 13,000. Okay, this cutting wheel is 13,300. My grinder is good for up to 11,000. So that means I can safely use these products without anything coming apart. If I would have had a cutting wheel that was, only good for, let's say 9,000, and I'm using an 11,000 RPM grinder, it's going to be way too fast for that cutting wheel. So keep that in mind too when you're looking for your products for your cutting wheels, grinding wheels, and flap discs. You want to make sure you're buying the product that's going to be for the specific grinder you're using. Don't put yourself in a situation where it'll come flying apart, get yourself or somebody else hurt.